Without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker, inshallah. We were very blessed to have his brother address us before in one of our monthly seminars, Mufti Abdullah Wahid. And the topic he had spoken about was Jannah, the description of Jannah. This time we have his brother, Mufti Abdurrahman Wahid. He grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So he grew up here in America. And he was blessed with the ability to complete the memorization of the Quran. He's a Hafiz al-Quran at the young age of 10. Then he went on to pursue a rigorous 7-year Alim course, Islamic Studies course at Jamiatul Ulum al-Islamiyya in Canada. And he studied Arabic, fiqh, hadith, usul, etc. He completed the entire course and graduated in 2006 and was granted an ijazah in Sanad and Hadith. Afterwards, he went on to pursue a course in Ifta and Takhasus fil Fiqh for 2 years at the renowned Center of Learning, Jamiatul Ulum al-Islamiyya in Binori Town, Karachi, Pakistan. Then he spent 1 year in the path of Allah in da'wah, inviting people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, 1 year in the field of da'wah. Currently he resides in Warren, Michigan, where he's a director and teacher at the Michigan Islamic Institute. He is a motivational speaker and excels at working with the youth, and he frequently travels the country to deliver lectures. So inshallah he will be addressing us in the seminar. Inshallah I call upon him, فَلْيَتَفَضَّلْ مَشْكُورًا. And thereafter, inshallah, as I mentioned, we have various speakers, the scholars here from Dawah Salam, as well as Sheikh Saad Qadri and his wife coming down from Masjid al-Huda. And Sheikh Saad Qadri was a teacher here. Many of his students might be here. He was a teacher both at CPSA as well as at IFS school. So many of his former students are here. They can benefit from him. He will be here, and his wife will be speaking to the sisters. The youth definitely should stay for those programs. Jazakumullah khair.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا تراه العيون ولا يصفه الواصفون ولا تخالطه الظنون ولا يخشى الدوائر يعلم عدد قطر الأمطار وعدد ورق الأشجار وعدد ما أظلم عليه الليل وما أشرق عليه النهار ولا تواري منه سماء سماء ولا أرض أرضا ولا جبل ما في وعره ولا بحر ما في قعره ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد قال الله عز وجل في كتابه العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الذين قال لهم الناس إن الناس قد جمعوا لكم فاخشوهم فزادهم إيمانا وقالوا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل فانقلبوا بنعمة من الله وفضل لم يمسسهم سوء واتبعوا رضوان الله والله ذو فضل عظيم إنما ذلكم الشيطان يخوف أولياءه فلا تخافوهم وخافوني إن كنتم مؤمنين وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام أوذيت في الله ما لم يؤذ أحد وأخفت في الله وما يخاف أحد أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. My dear respected brothers and elders, fellow youngsters, mothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Living in these days and months, this era that we're living in, it is a very confusing state, definitely. And it reminds us of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he mentions that يقول الله تبارك وتعالى بي حلفت لأتيحن لهم فتنة يصير الحليم فيها حيران, where the hadith states that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I will inflict such fitan, trials and tribulations upon this nation, this ummah, that even the wisest ones among them will be searching for answers, looking to see what they can speak about, where should they start, where should they end, should we talk about the problems of the youth, should we talk about the problems of the parents, should we talk about the masajid, should we talk about the schools, where should we start? يَصِيرُ الْحَلِيمُ فِيهَا حَيْرَانٌ. An intelligent person will be looking and searching for answers. How can we solve this situation? How can we get a better idea on what the solution is? And this is the time and age we're living in. We just get done with one tragedy and the dust settles, we stop talking about it, people forget about it, and the next thing happens. And the next thing happens. The next thing happens. And then what happens is this really becomes a test to our iman. So today, when Mufti Azim Sahib, may Allah bless him, and his brother and his father and the community, I seeing this masjid, this community, I was so happy. The students over here, it's my first time coming here. My brother has come here before, my first time coming here, and I'm motivated to go back and do more effort after seeing the effort these brothers have put in here. So he said to me, this is the topic of today's discussion. And when he gave me this topic, I said, you know what? There's so many angles you can speak about. So many different angles. Which one do you want me to speak about? And we only have 1 hour. So where do you want me to start? He said, you know what? Just speak however you feel, which is comfortable. So inshallah today, I would like to just shine some light on a few points. On a few points. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then just a few points and end my talk like that. The first and foremost thing that we must all realize and come to understand is that what we are facing today is nothing compared to what the Sahaba and the Prophet faced in Makkah. Absolutely nothing. We are not the first victims of Islamophobia. We are not the first victims of people looking at us like this. We're not the first victims. We are not the first victims of this fear that people have in their hearts against Muslims, for Muslims. No. In reality, this started from the first Nabi that came. The first Nabi that actually came to give da'wah to non-Muslims was Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam. And the whole surah Nuh is filled with this, where people were ignoring him. People will call, imagine, all this whole seminar is organized, and a speaker comes here, and all of you plot that when the speaker comes, we're going to put our fingers in our ears, we're going to start howling and talking and ignoring this man. So this person's so motivated to come to give a talk, and when he comes, everyone's like this. جَعَلُوا أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ وَاسْتَغْشَوْا ثِيَابَهُمْ. Nuh alayhi salam was told, come, you need to speak to us about something. Okay, come, I'll gather all the people. All the people gather together, and when he gets there, so motivated to speak, boom, they have their fingers in their ears, ignoring him totally. So this went on until the Prophet ﷺ, before he became a Nabi. You see, before the Prophet became a Nabi, he was one of the people. And he was Ameen, Sadiq, the best person over there. But the moment he started giving da'wah towards Allah, people started feeling this fear from him. And he started getting inflicted with persecutions, and people started doing things that damaged and hurt the Prophet's personality. He was hurt. And we are not the first people to feel this. You see, the Prophet ﷺ in Makkah, his own family made him go through this. The Prophet ﷺ says, أُوذِيتُ فِي اللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يُؤْذَ أَحَدٍ. The amount of difficulty that I had to face and tolerate in the path of Allah, not a single person in the world will ever be challenged like that. Not a single person. Hadith in Tirmidhi. And the amount of fear, phobia, وَأُخِفْتُ فِي اللَّهِ, that I had to face. You put the world together on one side of the pan, they will not face that. They will not face that. I was boycotted. For 30 days, me and Bilal were sitting down in our home, and we had not a single morsel of food to eat. We had no water to drink. We would suck on dates. That's how we would live. Once Abu Bakr anhu says, the Prophet was doing sajda, and Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt comes, he puts his shawl around his neck, فَخَنَقَهُ خَنْقًا شَدِيدًا, and he chokes him. This is the greatest man to walk on the face of the earth. He chokes him. And he chokes him and chokes him till he could not breathe. And Abu Bakr jumps and he pushes him off of him. أَتَقْتُلُونَ رَجُلًا أَن يَقُولَ رَبِّيَ اللَّهِ, do you hate this man because he's a Muslim? Because he calls towards Allah? Leave him alone. Leave him alone. Muni bin Azdi radiallahu anhu says, one day in the morning I wake up and I see one handsome man walking in the streets of Makkah. And he's calling people towards Allah. And people are afraid of this man. People are going against him. فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ تَفَلَ فِي وَجْهِهِ. Some people spit in his face, on the beloved face of the Prophet ﷺ. Hassan bin Thabit says, لَوْ لَمْ تَكُنْ لَهُ آيَةٌ مُبَيِّنَةٌ لَكَانَ مَنْظُرُهُ يَأْتِيكَ بِالْخَبْرِ. If the Prophet ﷺ came to this world, never said a single word, and no miracles he brought down to this world, all he did was come and sit on a chair on the member, and the audience of the world just came to see him and see his beloved face. لَكَانَ مَنْظُرُهُ يَأْتِيكَ بِالْخَبْرِ. Just by looking at his face, you would realize this man is a truthful person. This man's a person of peace. This man's a person of haqq, tranquility, happiness. This guy is a happy person. لَكَانَ مَنْظُرُهُ يَأْتِيكَ بِالْخَبْرِ. Like how I said in my Jummah khutbah today, Allama Iqbal, he says, تُو غَنِي أَزْهَرْ دُعَالًا مَنْ فَقِيرٌ روز محشر عذرهای من پذیر گر تمی بینی حسابم ناگزیر از نگاه مصطفى پنہا پگیر. He says, Oh Allah, Tu ghani azhar du'alam man faqir. Mullah Ilyas Rahimahullah used to literally say that I believe that because of this sha'r of Allama Iqbal, Allah will give him maghfirat. He's Farsi. I'm a young chap. I always say, I just called one guy in Canton, from Hyderabad, who was into these in poetry, Allama Iqbal, Sa'di, Iqbal Azim, all these. I called them to just get some couplets that I didn't know. I said, how do you say this? And we're from America, it's hard to even speak Urdu. So you have to learn from somebody. So he says, Tu ghani azhar du'alam man faqir. Oh Allah, you are the greatest of all greatest. Anta ahaqqu man abid. وأحق من ذكر وأنصر من ابتغي وأرأف من ملك وأجود من أعطى أنت الملك لا شريك لك وأنت الفرد لا ند لك كل شيء هالك إلا وجهك لن تطاع إلا بإذنك ولن تعصى إلا بعلمك تطاع فتشكر وتعصى فتغفر القلوب لك مفضية والسر عندك علانية الحلال ما أحللت والحرام ما حرمت والدين ما شرعت والأمر ما قضيت الخلق خلقك والعبد عبدك والأمر أمرك وأنت الله الرؤوف الرحيم. Oh Allah, there's no word that can describe your greatness. Not a single word in this world can describe your greatness. And me, oh Allah, I am such an insignificant person. I'm just a normal person, normal chap walking on the road. So do me a favor, oh Allah. Roz mahshar uzr hai man pazir. On the day of judgment, just like a person who's a millionaire and he gives someone $100 as a loan, he forgives it. Who cares? It's $100. When you're in Tim Hortons, Dunkin' Donuts, we buy a $1.50 coffee for somebody, we're not going to ask it back for him. We're look at a fool. It's $1.50. Why do we look? This is just $1.50. It's insignificant. Oh Allah, you're so great. I'm so insignificant. On the day of judgment, let me just slide through. Let me slide through. We make dua, Allah makes it easy for us like that too. The Prophet said, Allah mahasibni hisaban yasira. Oh Allah, make the accountability on the day of judgment easy. Make it easy. Make it easy. So Hazrat Aisha said, Ya Rasulullah, why are you making this dua for? The Prophet said, Innahu man nuqisha bil hisabi faqad halak. Any person who Allah makes him stand and starts questioning him about every second, every minute, every penny, every dollar earned and spent, there's no way he'll be saved. So when you cross the border from Canada to America, which we've done so many times in our life, you cross the border and they take the passport or your identification And if they're satisfied with your identification, your question, the answers they got from the questions, they say, you're all set, you can go now. But sometimes they put that orange sticker on that windshield, like this, which will happen to us many times. Once, it was an irony, I was going from Detroit to Canada. I never get stopped in Canada. I was going with 2-3 youngsters who just started coming towards Deen, and they started wearing Sunnah. I went to pick them up from their homes, and they had, they were like 6'3", 6'4", guys, basketball players, tall guys. I come in, and they're wearing these tight shirts and tight pants. I said, what are you guys doing? So we're crossing the border, we can't, Sheikh, we love Sunnah, we love everything, but we can't cross a border like this. I said, no problem, they're new, no problem. And I'm like, they had their shades on. I said, okay, no problem, let's go. And I'm dressed like this. They said, we can go in a different car. I said, no, it's okay, we'll go in the same car. And I'm driving across the border, they send me inside. All 3 of us. I said, what? I never get sent inside in Canada. After 15 minutes, the border police calls me, Imama, Sunnah. Asked me, you know those guys? I said, yeah, I know them. So they're good people? I said, yeah, they're good people from my community. You sure? Yeah. Why are they with you for? I said, we're going for a program in Toronto. All right, you guys are all set. I said, they should have asked them, not me. So sometimes it's the opposite. I was just mentioning the ayat, إِنَّمَا ذَلِكُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ يُخَوِّفُ أَوْلِيَاءَ. That this fear that we sometimes develop, this is one of my points I was going to speak about. This is a fear that shaitan develops in the hearts of people, that shaitan puts in the hearts of his friends. إِنَّمَا ذَلِكُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ يُخَوِّفُ أَوْلِيَاءَ. He instills the fear in the hearts of his friends. So if we have fear in our heart, in other words, we are the friends of shaitan. الَّذِينَ قَالَ لَهُمُ النَّاسِ إِنَّ النَّاسِ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَاخْشَوْهُمْ. In Uhud, when the people went, the Quraysh of Makkah came, attacked, so many martyrs, the Prophet himself almost became shaheed. Our elders go to Uhud. Sheikh Sa'id Ahmad Khan, rahimahullah, he used to go to Uhud, stay there for one day and cry looking at the scenes of Uhud, thinking about what happened that day. How did this happen? 1,000 Muslims come. At night, Abdullah bin Ubay, he starts a propaganda and he takes 300 people back with him to Medina. Steals all these horses and camels. Now they're even less armored. And this happens. So then when these kuffar of Makkah left and the Muslims were gathering all the wounded, giving the coffin and praying the janazah for all the deceased, the martyrs, while they were in this, somebody comes back running to them and saying, إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ. These people, they just went back for more reinforcements. And they're coming back for you. They're coming back to destroy you. The brother's asking the people to come a little closer. You guys are already close enough. The guys in the back. So they said, these people are coming to get you, to destroy you. And they're just getting reinforcements. It just got started. They're coming back. فَخْشَوْهُمْ. Be fearful. Hey, what are you doing walking around with that beard? You should be scared. Oh sister, what are you doing walking around with that hijab? You should be afraid. At this time and age? What are you doing praying salat in the plane? Once we were traveling from Toronto to Wichita, and we were 7-8 youngsters. Youngsters, ash-shabab shu'batun min al-junun. They're crazy, okay? So we have all these youth programs to just tame their craziness. I'm a youngster, so I can say it. No old man should say this to them. So we were traveling, there's a Pathan. The Pathans are even like double. So he was with us. I say to him, we're going to pray salat individually in the plane. So don't get up and pray Jamaat, 27 times more reward. We'll get that later. So this guy, he gets up, it's a small aircraft. He gets up, Allahu Akbar, Allahu. It gives adhan, the full adhan. So now I'm sitting there thinking, should I pretend like I don't know him? Like, who's this guy? I don't know this guy. Should I pretend like I don't know him, or what should I do? So I'm thinking. While the adhan finishes, this lady, may Allah reward her. You see, this fear that we have from people, not all of them have this. This lady gets up who's working in the airlines. She takes a mic and she says, this is the call to the prayer from Muslims. Any Muslim on the flight can get up and pray. That's it. It is how we view things. It is how we view things. You see, we have, so the Sahaba were told, إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ. They're coming back for you. Hey, now it's, maybe living in America is too difficult. Maybe we should move to Saudi Arabia. Let's go up north to Canada. Maybe it's a better idea to live there. Let's go there. No. Your heart is the same wherever you move. It's not like you get a bigger heart in Saudi. It stays the same size. And the fear and whatever you have, the emotions will be the same wherever you go in the world. Something wrong with you. Like the teacher, like one of our elders, he says that the teacher told the student, he took the map of the world, he ripped it into pieces, and he gave it to the student. He said, you know what? Now your job is to put the map of the world together in all little pieces. So this guy is puzzled. He says, how should I do this? And he's looking, and finally he sees, the shape of an eye, of a human eye. So he puts it together, then he sees the shape of a human nose. He says, hey, this looks pretty cool. And he starts putting the shape of a human together. And after a little while, he puts this whole map together. He doesn't realize what he just did. He just put the shape of the human all together. Hands, feet, head, everything in place. He taped it up. When he flipped it upside down, the world was together. The world, the whole globe, the map of the world was perfect. So he took it to his teacher, and he showed it to the teacher. The teacher said, I was just trying to teach you a lesson. When mankind becomes perfect, the world will become perfect. When mankind becomes perfect, the world will become perfect. And I will take it a step further. When Muslims will become better, the world will become better. When Muslims will become better, the world will become better. We'll come to that later on in the topic. So these people, fearful. You know what happened? فَخْشَوْهُمْ. Be afraid of them. You know what happened? Instead of being fearful towards these people, Allah says in the Quran, فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا. Their iman increased. Their iman actually increased in Allah. How many people do you hear saying this to you? When I was in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Arab world, I never used to pray salah too often. But when I came here, I started praying. I had to take care of my kids. So I started coming to the masjid. I started taking my kids to halaqas. But in those countries, so many times you hear people, oh, I never went in Jamaat. When I came here, I started going in the path of Allah. Well, this is happening here as well. So sometimes these things give you an opportunity to get more iman. So فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا. That their iman increased. There's not a single person in this room that does not love the Prophet ﷺ. We all love him. We just don't know it. We just don't know how to show it. We think this is a way to show the love for the Prophet ﷺ, but that's not the way to show the love. I just saw my friend Yasin Palwala. MashaAllah. I haven't seen him for a long time. Assalamu alaikum. He's one of our students in our school. So he said, we all have this love for him. So we're all here because we love Islam. We love Rasulullah. We love Allah. It is a natural sentiment that we will get affected when someone says something about Rasulullah. It's natural. But how do we do it? How do we do it? So they said, be afraid. فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا. Their iman increased. وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. Allah will take care of us. You know why Allah will take care of us? Because we took care of Allah's commandments when Allah told us to take care of His commandments. When Allah told us to put our eyes down, we put it down. When Allah told us to guard our ears, we guarded our ears. When Allah told us to pray, we prayed. When Allah told us to respect our parents, we did. When Allah told us to abstain from sins, we did. So now we need Allah. Allah will take care of us. Allah will take care of us. That is why this ayat of the Quran, وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ, that you will be superior if you're a mu'min. If you have iman, you'll be superior. So today, definitely Muslims are not superior, right? We're inferior everywhere we go. So that means there's something wrong with our iman. Because there's nothing wrong with the ayat of the Quran. The ayat of the Quran is perfect, flawless, and it's bulletproof. أَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. That if you have iman, you'll be superior. So definitely we're not superior. So that means our iman is not perfect. That means the effort starts there. The effort actually starts there. That is why Allah Iqbal, this poem he was saying, he's saying, you know what, oh Allah, let me slide in on that day. Then he says, Gar to me bini hisabam na guzir. Oh Allah, on that day, if you decide to take my hisab kitab, you decide that you will take it. You cannot slide. You will be questioned about your life. Then there's no way I'm going to survive. So do me a favor, az nigahe Mustafa pinha pagir, that don't do my hisab kitab in front of my Habib Rasulullah sallam, because if he sees me, he will get hurt. That this is the ummati I shed tears for? This is the ummati I sweat for? This is the ummati that I had to live a life of poverty for? This is the ummati that my grandchildren sacrificed their lives for? This is the ummati I had sleepless nights for? Oh Allah, if you're going to take my hisab kitab, don't do it in front of him, because if you do it in front of him, his feelings will be hurt. But do me a favor, just from a far distance, let me see his beloved face. Let me see his beloved face. So first of all, my dear friends, brothers and sisters in Islam, the Prophet ﷺ, he faced these situations in Makkah. The Sahaba faced these situations in Makkah. How did they respond? They were the first ones to face the situations. How did they respond? Khabbab ibn al-Arit radiallahu anhu says that I used to be dragged in the streets of Makkah just because I said, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Is there any youngster in this room or in the whole America that can say that I was dragged in the streets of America? And then he was put on burning coal, fire on his back, and he would lay there with a rock and a boulder on top of his chest until the fire would extinguish from the pus that would come from his back. Musab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu, a vulnerable person, a youngster, who faced Islamophobia from his own family, from his own mother. His mother says, oh Mus'ab, either it's me or it's Islam. Which one do you want? And Mus'ab ibn Umair says, oh my mother, I have seen the Prophet. You know that person who has tasted the sweetness of Iman in sajda, he will never taste that sweetness in anything in life after that. Anything in life. Once a person that has truly tasted the sweetness of Iman by listening to Quran and it affecting his heart, no song in the world can give him that affection. No song in the world can bring him to that state. So he will continue to look for it. But hey, this is the real thing. When you go to Pakistan in Jamaat, there's America's youngsters from America here. Hey, let's make them some food, and they make you pizza on a pita bread. Pita bread, tomatoes, cucumbers. Here's pizza for you. And the local people in Pakistan, oh pizza, pizza. They start eating it. But we know what pizza tastes like. So this is nothing like that. We know what real. سهري لتنقيح العلوم ألذ لي من وصل غانية ومن طيب عناقي. Imam Shafi'i says, you know, staying up at night, doing some mutala of my books, performing sajda, this thing gives me more ladhat, gives me more, it brings more happiness to my life than anything in the world. Anything in the world. So Mus'ab ibn Umair said, oh my mother, how can I leave the Prophet ﷺ? That's impossible. I cannot do that. The mother said, then you and all your wealth belongs to me. The clothes that you have on your back belong to me. Take that off and walk out of the house. This man literally had to walk out of the house without clothes, and he covered himself with leaves and stones. And the Prophet ﷺ, fast forward to when he passed away in Uhud, when his uncle was laying on the ground, Hamza radiallahu anhu, his uncle was laying on the ground, who he loved dearly. He picked up Mus'ab ibn Umair and he put him on his lap and he kissed his face. And he said to the Ansar of Medina, because the Ansar never saw him in Mecca, he said to the Ansar of Medina, I have never seen someone more beautiful than this man. You know, when a beautiful person says that about a beautiful person, that means he's beautiful. And he says, I have never seen a man, a youngster with better hair than him. أحسن لمة منه. And then he says, I have never seen a person live in more luxury than this man in my life. Living in luxury. He would never wear the same clothes more than twice. Once he wore it, second time, gone. Done. He'll never wear it again. The women of Mecca used to take their clothes in the alleys that he used to walk through and put them in the fragrance from that fragrance that he used to wear because it was so fragrant. He used to wear this expensive utur. And today he's sitting there and he doesn't have a cloth to cover his whole entire body. If you covered his head, his feet would expose. And if you covered his feet, his head would expose. And they had to bury him with that sheet and put some leaves on his feet. This, my dear friends, is a true reality. Did Muslims take revenge? Did the Prophet ﷺ, when he came back after all of this, 10 years in Medina, 9 years in Medina, and he comes back after the people of Makkah, I cannot tell you all the historical events, but after they broke the truce of Hudaybiyah, they broke it. They broke it. They said, no, we don't want any more. So now he comes back to Makkah with all the Sahaba in rage. Yes, one Sahabi says, Al-Yawm Yawmul Malhama. Today is a day of butchering. Malhama means? Today is a day of butchering. Wallahi, when I hear these words, I cry. He said, today is a day of butchering. These are the people that took us out of our cities. When the Prophet ﷺ, Waraqah bin Nawfal told him, your people will kick you out of Makkah. The Prophet said, Ahum mukhrijiyya. Will they actually do that? I love Makkah. Why would they kick me out of my city? When he was leaving Makkah, he turned back and he's crying. And he's saying, I would never leave you if it was not for your people. I would never leave you. When they went to Medina, Bilal, Abu Bakr, anhu, people were weeping for days and days, homesick because they're away from Makkah, away from Zamzam. So now he's returning, the Sahabi out of emotion says, Al-Yawm Yawmul Malhama. Today is a day of butchering. The Prophet hears this, he says, call him here. Who said that? He said, this man said that. You know what the Prophet said? He said to him, Al-Yawm Yawmul Marhama. Today is a day of mercy. Today is a day of mercy, man. It's not a day of butchering. Today is a day of mercy. When Abu Sufyan heard that, he said, what did the Prophet say? He said, Al-Yawm Yawmul Marhama. Today is a day of mercy. He couldn't believe it. At once he accepted Islam. At once he accepted Islam. And after accepting Islam, he said, O Prophet of Allah, I have some family. Will they be saved? The Prophet said, O Abu Sufyan, whoever enters in your house will be saved. Abu Sufyan said, well, my house is very small. My house is very small. Many people can't enter into it. The Prophet then replied, anyone who enters into the haram will be saved. He said, well, the haram is very small. The haram is very small. Not everyone can enter, not everyone can fill the haram, the people that want to be saved. You know what the Prophet then said? Anyone who stays in their own homes and locks their doors, they're all saved. Did you ever hear of a conquest like this? Where not a single sword was drawn? No revenge was taken? لا تثريب عليكم اليوم. No revenge. This is our Nabi. This is who we follow. He came back to Makkah and this is exactly what he did. No revenge, mercy on everybody. So for those of us who are being told by media and all over the world that Islam is a religion of extremism, Islam is a religion of compulsion, forcing people to accept Islam, this is an absolute lie. Those who say it are lying, those who believe it are liars themselves. You know, a person who resorts to the media to get their information is a fool. He's a fool. Why are you resorting to the media for? The first thing we're told when we're studying basic university classes, don't Google it. Basic thing, don't Google it. Do some research yourself. No Wikipedia. But when it comes to these things, the world takes the response from these people. Our Prophet was that Prophet. Before he went to Medina, there was tribal wars. When he walked into Medina, he never forced people to accept Islam. There was Jews living there. There was pagans living there. There was Christians living there. And there were Muslims living there. He said, all of you can follow your own religion. All of you can do whatever you want to do. Just coexist. Live with one another. No forcing anybody to do anything. When Umar bin Khattab, radiallahu anhu, the legend of this ummah, when he went to Bayt al-Maqdis, Palestine, and he was told to come there, as I'm saying this, I remember this incident, when Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah told, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, give him this horse. You know, you have come with this camel of yours, this old, Honda Civic, come jump on this Porsche. Look royal, look epic, you're the king. So please come on this. So he had this old little 1980 car, now he says, come on this new car. Umar al-Khattab was a very humble person. He said, no, I don't want that. He said, no, jump on this horse. He said, no, I'm not going to do that. He said, hey, this is also the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. He used to dress for the occasion. If it was khutbah, he used to wear certain clothes. If he had to go somewhere, this was normal, sunnah. So when he said that to him, he said, okay, no problem. He sat on the horse. Right when he sat on the horse, you see people that know about bloodlines of horses, this horse was from the royal bloodline. And this horse, in its bloodline, only warriors, gladiators, and kings sit on it. Only people who are warriors, gladiators, kings, they sit on these horses. So when Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu sat on this horse, it had this proud trout, like this, out of pride. Oh, look who's on top of me. When it settled, Umar bin Khattab jumped off of the horse, went back to his camel. Abu Ubaidah said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, why did you do this for? He said, this horse has pride. I'm afraid the pride will affect my heart. I'm afraid this pride will come into me. And we're not afraid. We're not afraid. And then he goes inside Palestine. And then the Jews give him a tour of Bayt al-Maqdis and their areas. The Christians gave him a tour of their landscape and their memorable things. And then he walked into a church. They were giving him a tour of the church. You know how we do with non-Muslims? They were doing it with him. And the priest of the church said, Oh, Umar bin Khattab, bless this church, pray in this church. Bless it and pray your salat in the church. He said, no, I'm not doing that. So when I first read that, I said, that's obvious. Why would you pray in a church? But he had a different reason. So I'm not praying in the church. And he walked out. This priest was offended by this. He didn't show it, but he was very offended. Right when he got out, right outside the steps of the church, because it was salat time, he prayed over there, but not inside the church. And the priest, from his expression, you could see he was offended. So Umar al-Khattab said to him, I know you got offended from what I just did, but remember, I did it for your own good. So what do you mean? He said, I know my people, I know my followers, I know Muslims. If they found out later on that Umar bin Khattab prayed salat in this church, they will break this church and make it into a masjid. And I did not want them to do that. I did not want them to do that. So I prayed over here. Guess what? There's a masjid over there called Masjid Umar bin Khattab. There's a masjid where he prayed called Masjid Umar bin Khattab. So this was taught to the Muslims. This was taught to the Muslims. First of all, the first point I made was living in these times and ages, don't be afraid. As long as we're living like good Muslims, which I'm going to shine some light on right now. Second point I made was these Islamophobic sentiments, we are not the first people to get affected by them. The Prophet, the Sahaba got more affected by them. How did they respond? How did they respond to these things? They responded with love, with compassion, with forgiveness, with good akhlaq and good manners. So for us Muslims living here today, how Hassan Basri rahimahullah says, Hayhat hayhat, ahlaka an-nasu al-amani, qawlun bila amal, wa ma'rifatun bighayri sabr, wa imanun bila yaqeen. دخل القوم والله ثم خرجوا وعرفوا ثم أنكروا وحرموا ثم استحلوا ما لي أرى رجالا ولا أرى عقولا وأسمع حسيسا ولا أرى أنيسا إنما دين أحدكم نعقة على لسانه إذا سئل أمؤمن بيوم الحساب فقال نعم كذب ومالك يوم الدين إن من أخلاق المؤمن قوة في الدين وحزم في لين وإيمان في يقين. He says that Hayhat, hayhat. Where are those people gone who represent Islam in the right way? Where are those guys? I can't see them. أهلك الناس الأماني. Their own priorities in this life have made them forgot what the real purpose why they came here. Could you believe this? There are youngsters who live in this country all over the world in spite of knowing everything that's happening in Syria and all those orphans and all those families, millions of people being without houses, without food, without water, without parents. And in spite of knowing what happens in Palestine, in spite of knowing what happened to all these Muslims in the world, we have youngsters who have not changed a single thing in their life. Let me become better for these people. You know, when I went to Grand Rapids and saw those 800 orphans who have come from Syria, and you take them ice caps, lattes, whatever you take them, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, the first question they ask you is, Aina Abi? Where's my father? Aina Ummi? Where's my mother? And we sitting here as Muslims, youngsters especially, all we could do for this is like a post on Facebook. Oh, I love it. Or share a post on Facebook. That's why I don't have Facebook. Because then you think you've done your job. I shared it, I liked it, I put a comment. What did you practically do to make Allah happy? وَاتَّبَعُوا رِضْوَانَ اللَّهِ. The Sahaba, the reason why Allah was with them, because Allah was happy with them. That's why Allah was with them. That's why they had the support of Allah. Allah was happy with them. Did we hear of youngsters who changed something about their life? That, this is happening over there. Let me start praying salat. Let me start reading Quran. Let me stop doing this sin that I'm doing. When a person and his family has a person who's going through cancer, tumor, his life changes. Doesn't it? Allah save us from this. Allah save us from these things. I have dealt with people who have brothers and sisters who go through mental illness from the day they were born. I have friends who have children who are born with cancer. And they take them 4 days a week for dialysis. Their whole life changes because a family member in their family is sick, is going through difficulty. Now their whole schedule is around that person. Aren't the brothers and sisters in the world our family? Aren't they our family? They are part of our family. Jasadan wahid, we are one family, we are one ummah. But we haven't changed anything about ourselves. I'm not making this a guilt trip, make you feel guilty or make myself feel guilty. But this is a reality check. We should be real about things. Talk about this, talk about that. Did I wake up for Fajr? Did I pray Fajr in the masjid? Did I pray Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha? When's the last time I prayed Sunnat al-Mu'akkada? When's the last time I opened the Quran and read some Quran? When's the last time I went to some ulama and sat with them? Did I stop doing this sin because, oh Allah, I want you to become happy? And if you become happy, maybe your happiness will affect those in Syria or those Muslims around the world. So he says, أَهْلَكَ النَّاسَ الْأَمَانِي. People have been destroyed by their own personal priorities and goals. قَوْلٌ بِلَا عَمَلٍ. They're talking but they're not acting. وَمَعْرِفَةٌ بِغَيْرِ صَبْرٍ. They say they're Muslim, the moment something happens, they have no patience. They have no patience, they're fearful. مَعْرِفَةٌ بِغَيْرِ صَبْرٍ. مَعْرِفَةٌ بِغَيْرِ صَبْرٍ. وَإِيمَانٌ بِلَا يَقِينٍ. We're Muslim. But where's your conviction gone in Allah? The one who started the problem has a solution to end the problem. The one who started the problem is the only one who has a solution to end the problem. This problem did not start because of non-Muslims. Like how you and I are supposed to believe that rizq is in the hands of Allah. It's not in my degree, it is not in my talent, it is not in my job. Rizq is in the hands of Allah. Similarly, we as Muslims, we believe conditions are in the hands of Allah. Allah can change conditions however He wants, whenever He wants, as quick as He wants, as long as He wants to take. And nobody has any say in this. وَعَلَمْ أَنَّ الْأُمَّةَ لَوْ اجْتَمَعَتْ عَلَىٰ أَنْ يَضُرُّوكَ بِشَيْءٍ لَمْ يَضُرُّوكَ بِشَيْءٍ إِلَّا قَدْ كَتَبَهُ اللَّهُ لَكَ. Oh my son, if the world gets together to harm you, they cannot harm you if Allah does not want to harm you. When the Prophet ﷺ was in the house going for hijrah, and he was leaving to Medina, and all the people that surrounded the house, the chieftains of Makkah, the youth of Makkah, armed, and they're ready to assassinate this man. Allah told them, you're going to get out. So he tells Ali, oh Ali, you come sleep in my bed. Ali bin Abi Talib says, I already wrote my wasiyah. I already bid my farewells with all my friends. I said, I'm not going to see you anymore. Thank you, have a good day. I did all my farewells. I wrote my wasiyah because there was no way I was going to survive that night. They were going to come in the room and I was gone. And when I got in bed, the Prophet ﷺ, he turned around and he said, oh Ali, I will see you in Medina. Ali bin Abi Talib said, Allahumma bismika mutahya. The best sleep I got, the sleep that we get in Jamaat. That's what he got there. And Talim. He said, I put the blanket over my face and I was knocked out. I knew I was going to meet him in Medina because he said it. I believed it. He said it, it's going to happen. And the Prophet, he walks up. You know what? One point. Why did they wait outside the house and wait for the Prophet to come out? Why did they do that? Why didn't they just jump the house? When the cops come to our house, they break the door down. They don't wait there for an hour, let them come out. We'll just wait here, start drinking some coffee. Let's wait, eat some donuts. I say, no, he doesn't open the door, boom, they're in. True or not? That's the way authority does it. So now there's all these people of authority, they waited outside the house. You know why? It's in Bidayah wa Nihaya. Ibn Kathir mentions that because of Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl was the person responsible to knock the door down. When he came close to the door of the Prophet's house, he saw some women in the house. He turned around, he said to the people, hey, our animosity is with Muhammad. His women are in the house, they deserve modesty. We cannot walk into the house. What did he say? We cannot walk into that house. There's women there. There's someone's sister there. Someone's mother there. Somebody's daughter there. Who are we to look at them? Who are we to defame them? Who are we to step into their territory? So we're going to wait for him to come out. You know who said that? Abu Jahl. And this is something us as Muslims do every day. Not thinking that we are from the ummah of Rasulullah. That is why they waited. Because they never wanted to walk in. Even them, they never used to look at immodest things. Even them, they never used to lie. When they were asked about the Prophet, they would tell the truth. When Yazdarij, the last king of Persia, sent a letter to the king of China and asked the king of China, last hadith in Hayat al-Sahaba, mentioned Targhib al-Tarhib, in Ibn Hibban mentions it in his Hilya. He says, Yazdarij, he sent a letter to the king of China, and he said to the king of China, could you please help me? He said, Inna hada wa'adun ala al-muluk injad al-muluk. That this is something that the kings always do for each other. If they need help, I should help. But before I help you, could you please tell me about these people that have come to your superpower country and have come in, and you have more people, they have less people, and they're still succeeding. Tell me something about them. So he started asking questions. He said, who are these people? You know that person who was sent by Yazdarij? He could have lied. What could he have done? He could have lied. You know how sometimes we lie about somebody who's about to start a business with somebody? Oh, don't do business with him. He stole money from me. Even though he didn't. Just because we don't want him to get that business. Don't buy that car. That car has some issues. So this man could have lied. But he didn't lie. When he was asked, how are the Sahaba? He told them the exact truth. He said, these are people who listen to the Amir. These are simple people. The one question he asked, أَيَسْتَحِلُّونَ مَا حَرَّمَ اللَّهِ? Those things that Allah has made haram, do they make it halal and do those things? And he said, definitely not. What Allah has said not to do, they don't even go near it. He said, as long as they're acting upon this quality, today the ummah is involved, the ilm of this ummah is in istihlal. You know what istihlal means? What are those things that are haram that we can make halal? And the aim of the ummah is about this now. Oh, this is halal, that should be halal, this should be halal, that should be halal. And this is the one quality that the king, he said that as long as these people have this quality, لَوْ أَرَادُوا الْجِبَالَ لَهَدُّوهَا, if they intended to go to the mountains, Everest, they would go on these mountains, they would destroy these mountains. Nothing could stop them, because these are men who have qualities. And then he never lied. So, وَمَعْرِفَةٌ بِغَيْرِ صَبَرٍ وَإِيمَانٌ بِلَا يَقِينٍ دَخَلَ الْقَوْمِ وَاللَّهِ ثُمَّ خَرَجُوا. As quick as we enter the masjid, we leave the masjid faster than that. We walk in, boom, there's a drive-through Jummah in Arizona. I'm not lying. A drive-through Jummah. It's called drive-through Jummah. Allah Akbar, adhan, khutbah, adhan, 4 or 5 minutes, you're out. دَخَلَ الْقَوْمِ وَاللَّهِ ثُمَّ خَرَجُوا وَعَرَفُوا ثُمَّ أَنْكَرُوا. Sometimes Allah makes us recognize things. Hey, if you don't lock your door, someone can come in and steal your belongings. If you don't lock your car, someone can steal your car. If you yourself don't protect the value and the respect of your Habib Rasulullah, somebody will take it. Allah makes us recognize this sometimes. And we recognize for a few days, oh yeah, ثُمَّ أَنْكَرُوا, then we forget. And we go back on our same path that we were on. Then he says, مَا لِي أَرَى رِجَالًا وَلَا أَرَى عُقُولًا. He says, how come I see people, but I don't see senseful people, intelligent people? They're always talking about, whenever I go to a gathering, I say, what is going on in the world? They're always talking about them, they did this, they did that, they did this. تو ادھر ادھر کی بات نہ کر, یہ بتا کہ قافلہ کیوں لوٹا, مجھے رہزنوں سے گلا نہیں, تیری رہبری کا سوال ہے. The poet says, don't talk to me about this, that, them, they did this. یہ بتا کہ قافلہ کیوں لوٹا. Tell me, why was this caravan looted? How did these people have the courage to say these things about Rasulullah, to say this about Muslims in Islam, the people of Allah? मुझे रहज़नों से गिला नहीं, I don't have any shikwa about those people. तेरी रहबरी का सवाल है. I have a problem the way you are guiding this caravan, the way you are representing this caravan. Something wrong with that. Nothing wrong with them. Allama Iqbal says, अपने मन में डूब कर पांजा सुराग़ ज़िंदगी, तू अगर मेरा नहीं बनता न बन, अपना तो बन. ढूंढने वाला सितारों की गुज़रगाहों का, अपने अफ़कान की दुनिया में सफ़र कर न सका. A person who went all the way to the moon, to the stars, सूरज की शुआओं को गिरफ्तार किया. He got the sun rays of the sun, he could capture it, but he could not bring light to the darkness of his life. He could not bring light to the darkness of his life. Look in the mirror and say, what are we doing wrong? Why? Look at this person. In Michigan, that city that has the most population of Muslims is Dearborn. And Dearborn has the highest car insurance in the whole Michigan. You know why? Because every Muslim is lying. You know, when we're selling cars in Michigan, and I put my car on Craigslist, somebody calls me, and my name is Abdul or Muhammad, okay, thank you, have a good day. They won't buy a car from me. You know what's even ironic than that? If I call somebody, his name's Abdullah, I won't buy a car from him. This guy's lying. And I tried. Recently, I wanted to buy a car from my brother. I called this guy. I said, hey, you know what? Oh, Sheikh, you're Sheikh of that masjid. Oh, yeah, this car is this. I said, mashallah, this guy's not lying to me. Go on Carfax, had a huge accident. When you're doing work in the masjid, we were doing work in the masjid. In the masjid. When you do work in the masjid, ask Sheikh Minhaj al-Mufti Azim. You know what? We prefer not to call Muslims. So you know what? They're going to come, oh, you know, Sheikh, I have this really big discount for you guys. Nobody else gets this, only the masjid. Okay? And when they walk out, the next contractor comes in, the guy gives us a code $3,000 less than that. So, upar kaam bhi aise, oh, ihsan bhi bachara. Oh, man, this big, huge discount for you guys. Who are we to blame anybody else? There's not a single mother who can confidently say, I cannot say single, majority of the mothers, that they don't know where their children are, when they're going, when they're coming back, have no idea. They're living a numb life now. My son comes, okay, good, give him a hug. My daughter comes, I'll give her a hug. Where mothers are being disobeyed, where fathers are being ignored over their friends, where masajid are being ignored, where the akhlaq and the dealings of Muslims are like this, then who are we to blame other than ourselves for the problems we are facing? We can't blame anybody else. We have to blame ourselves. And you know what? Like that one sheikh, he says, it's not a problem. He said, I have good news for you and bad news for you. You heard that before? I have good news and bad news. One sheikh, he mentions this very nicely. The good news I have, that you know that the project we had for the parking lot, $140,000 we had to collect. Alhamdulillah, through all the fundraising, through all the traveling around America and flyers, advertisement, called Junaid Jamshed, everything. We collected that money. I'm not here for fundraising, by the way, but I'm just saying, this is an example. Everyone's Alhamdulillah. We collected all that money. The bad news, the money is still in your pockets. Good news, we collected it. The bad news is still in your pockets, still in your bank. The good news is that you and I, us Muslims, have the solution for every single problem and fitna that will take place till the Day of Judgment. We have it. The bad news is we're still worried about our own life. We're so caught up in our own life. So selfish. This ummah is a selfless ummah, not a selfish ummah. We worry about ourselves later, then we worry about others first. We're not reactive people, we're proactive people. We're reacting to situations. Oh, now we should be good to our neighbors. Like you shouldn't have been good before? Like you shouldn't have been good before? Now we should act nice to people. No, you're representing Islam. I was coming out of the Walmart and there was a US soldier dressed in the uniform in Michigan, and he says, he starts slandering me, taunting me, Muslim. So he was with 4 or 5 soldiers, and I was with my wife, who happens to be Daisy. Daisies have a heart this small. They're driving on the road, see a police car pulled over somebody else. Your mother says, oh, slow down. You already pulled someone over. What's he going to do to me? You should drive faster. He's already have someone pulled over. Because Daisies have small heart like this. Arabs, mashallah, hearts the size of the chest. So my wife said, oh, leave him. I said, no, I got to go talk to this guy. I go up to him, I said, you know what? I have no problem with what you're saying, but don't say it while you're wearing these clothes. You're representing your country. And you say that while you're representing your country, to disgrace the country you're living in. I salute you for your efforts, but I don't want you misrepresenting the country you're living in and making me believe this is the sentiments of the country. Don't wear these clothes while you're doing that. Take them off and then do it. You know what? All those guys walked straight. Like this guy, that makes sense. We are representing Islam. I have a turban on my head, driving. I could give some space to the person driving out of the driveway. I could give space to him. I could give space. I could let the old man park before me. We cannot even be civilized in our own masjids, in the parking lots. So my dear friends, brothers and sisters in Islam, Allah has given us the solutions. Finally, I will say this one beautiful hadith after how Hassan Basri rahimahullah, he says that inna min akhlaq al-mu'min quwwatan fi deen. The quality of a mu'min is he is very strong in his deen. Nothing tantalizes him. Nothing changes him. وَإِيمَانًا فِي يَقِينٍ. He has iman and he has also conviction Allah will help him. وَحَزْمًا فِي لِينٍ. He is soft, but he's not stupid being soft. You know how some parents who are soft and gentle with their kids, but they're not very smart. So they're very soft with their children, but they're not smart about being soft. So the child says, oh, but daddy, I want another iPhone, the new one came out. After 3-4 sentences, you give it to him. Daddy, you know the Wi-Fi is very slow. Could you make it faster? You give that to him too. Daddy, I got A's in my class. You give him another smartphone, thinking that, I should be soft. Oh, let them go. I have parents who come to our school. I said, is your kid going to become hafiz? He's 7 years old. He said, yes, if he wants to do it. I said, who is he to want that? You should make him want to do it. Be smart about these things. So a mu'min has hazman fi leen. He's soft and gentle, but he's smart about that. Then what does he have? All these qualities he said. Then he says, وَفِي الصَّلَاةِ خَاشِعًا وَإِلَى الرُّكُوعِ سَارِعًا إِذَا أَحْسَنَ اسْتَبْشَرَ وَإِذَا أَسَاءَ اسْتَغْفَرَ وَإِنْ عَتِبَ اسْتَعْتَبَ وَإِنْ ظُلِمَ عَدَلَ وَإِنْ جِيفَ عَلَيْهِ صَبَرَ. This person, وَإِنْ سُفِهَ عَلَيْهِ حَلُمَ. That if this person, someone does something wrong to him, he forgives him. So, سُفِهَ عَلَيْهِ حَلُمَ. He's clement with them. He shows clemency. He says, who cares, man? I don't have to react to these situations. Who am I to react? I don't have to react to anything. Let me just keep it in my heart. If someone does injustice to him, he shows justice towards him. If someone does wrong to him, he forgives him. Today, you and I have a problem forgiving Muslim people. Forget non-Muslim people. I said this in my Jummah khutbah today. I mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ was a man who had immense love for humanity. And it was visible on his face that he had love for people. True love. And when you have an feeling in your heart, you can't hide it from your face. So if you actually hate non-Muslims, it will come over here. And if you actually don't like somebody, it will show over here. And if you're actually mad at somebody, it will show over here. Ask those husbands who go home to their wives and their wives are not happy with them. Wife doesn't have to say anything. Knock on the door, open the door, wife says, Right from her expression, she's not happy with me. She doesn't have to say anything. A mother expressing herself to a child, she doesn't have to remind her child how much she loves her or him. Her expression on her face, the way she acts, shows that. So, he said we have 1 hour left. No, 10 minutes left. So, the Prophet ﷺ, he had this feeling in his heart. Feeling, love, compassion, sympathy for the ummah. So similarly, all of us, we should carry this in our heart, walk around everywhere with this. Today we cannot walk with it with our Muslim brothers. We have a problem leaving the hall and shaking some people's hands. We have a problem leaving this hall and shaking some people's hands. Wallahi al-azim. This one Muslim brother named Hamza Abdul Mateen in Arbor, who was recruited by University of Michigan as a linebacker, big guy, African American guy. He accepted Islam. He walked into a masjid in Michigan. I'm not going to say the name. This masjid is predominantly full of the people that do the work of da'wah. And it's a very active masjid. He walks into the masjid at the door. He walks in. This old man comes to him and he says, "Oh, can I help you?" He says, "Yes, I'm here to pray salat." He says, the masjid for black people is over there. The masjid for black people is over there. Is this what Islam teaches you? When Abu Dharr radiyallahu anhu said something to Bilal, "O son of a black woman," and Bilal radiyallahu anhu came back and he fell on the feet of his beloved Prophet ﷺ and he started crying. He said, what Abu Dharr said to me? He said this to me and the Prophet started crying. He said, did he actually say this? He said these racist remarks about you? Go call him. He called Abu Dharr and he scolded Abu Dharr. Abu Dharr, it was a giant Sahabi. He's a giant Sahabi. Can I go into details about him? So Abu Dharr, who do you think you are? Abu Dharr he got so sad, he became so, he was in a different state of mind. He laid down on the ground and he said, "Oh Bilal, step on me, step on my face, because I don't deserve any better than this." The Prophet stepped on racism that day. That it will never happen again. Guy walks in, he says, the black people's masjid is over there. A few months later, we're walking in Warren, we see this guy, he says salam to us, we bring him to the masjid. He said, after that, I said, I'm not coming to Islam for sure. He left. He had a hip injury. That's what brought him to Islam, because then he couldn't go to University of Michigan. He was very depressed, accepted Islam. Was in Warren, we called him to the masjid, And we say, well, it's not like this, and true Islam is not like this. Alhamdulillah, he's a good Muslim now. Alhamdulillah. But this is the situation, this is our situation. Once Umar bin Khattab, radiallahu anhu, he gathered all the Sahaba in the room, and this is the final thing I will say, and after this I will leave. And pay attention to this. Because today, I will come here, Sheikh Minhaj will come here, Mufti Azim will come here, and then all these other guys on YouTube will talk about all these different solutions to these problems that we're having. Well, instead of me talking about what my opinions are, let me tell you the opinion of Umar bin Khattab. What he thought. What did he say? You know, and this man was not a normal person. إِنَّ الْمَلَائِكَ لَا يَتَكَلَّمُ عَلَى لِسَانِ عُمَرٍ. You know, when imams come to lead salat, they try to imitate different qurra. You know, some muhaysini, some afasi, some this, some that. While the angels used to try to imitate the way Umar spoke. ما في السماء ملك إلا وهو يوقر عمر وما في الأرض شيطان إلا وهو يفر من عمر. There's not a single angel in the sky that never had respect for Umar, and there was not a single shaitan in the world who never ran away from Umar. Umar is not a normal person. So he gathered the Sahaba in the room. He said, anybody who did not see the Prophet, leave the room. They all left. And then he said to the people, he said, okay, tamannaw. Make it quick. He said, tamannaw. You know what tamannaw means? Tamannaw in Urdu means tamanna karo. And I don't really know exact translation of that in English, but it means make an aspiration. Make a wish. What do you want? So the first Sahabi says, أَتَمَنَّى أَن يَكُونَ مِلْءَ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ ذَهَبًا فَأُنْفِقُهَا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. That I wish this house would be filled with gold. From the bottom to the top, from the wall to the wall. Not because I want it, but because I was a poor man all my life, and I had never felt the feeling of giving charity. So I wish Allah can fill this house with gold, and before I walk out of those doors, I give every coin in the path of Allah. Look at their wishes and look at our wishes. Ask a kid today, what do you want to become? I want to become Kobe. I want to do this. I want to become, this is what you want to do in life? So this is their wish. Second person, أَتَمَنَّى أَن يَكُونَ مِلْءَ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ فِضَّةً فَأُنْفِقُهَا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. He said almost the same thing. He said, I wish this whole house can be filled with silver coins. The other person said, I wish this whole house can be filled with slaves. Islam is the one that taught the rights of equality. I wish this whole house can be filled with slaves. And I could put my hand on the shoulder of every single slave and tell them, look them eye into eye and say, you are free for the sake of Allah. And I know because my Habib told me the person who frees one slave, Allah will free him from the fire of Jahannam. I want to do that. So after everyone made an aspiration, Abdul Rahman bin Auf, who was a very close friend of Umar bin Khattab, he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, why don't you make a wish? What do you want? You know what he said? He said, أَتَمَنَّى أَن يَكُونَ مِلْءَ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ رِجَالٍ كَأَمْثَالِ أَبِي عُبَيْدَةَ وَمُعَاذ بن جبل وَأَبِي حُذَيْفَةَ بن يَمَانٍ. I wish this house can be filled with men like these three men. With who? Not money, not armory, not khilafah, not government, not governmentship, not leadership. I just want this house to be filled with men like Abu Ubaidah, like Mu'adh bin Jabal, like Hudayfa bin Yaman. فَأَسْتَعْمِلُهُمْ فِي طَاعَةِ اللَّهِ فِي مَشَارِقِ الْأَرْضِ وَمَغَارِبِهَا. And then you give me these three men and give me any problem in the world, me and these three men will solve it by the mercy of Allah. Because these are men of qualities. They possess qualities. إن للإيمان 360 خصلة فإذا أحب الله تعالى عبدا أعطاه منها خصلة واحدة يدخل بذلك الجنة. The Prophet said that Iman has more than 360 qualities. When Allah loves somebody, Allah gives him one complete quality. I'm not going to go into the tashrih of this. Allah gives him one complete quality. You are a forgiving person. You are perfectly patient. You are perfectly generous. One perfect quality. When Allah loves somebody, Allah gives it to him. Because of that one perfect quality, Allah gives him Jannah. Abu Bakr was sitting there, he said, Ya Rasulullah, afiyya shay'un minha. Do I possess any one of those qualities? The Prophet said, Jam'un min kullin, all 360. Finally, I will say what Rumi said. He said, yesterday I was clever, I tried to change the world. Today I am wise, I am changing myself. Inna Allah la yughir ma biqawmin hatta yughir ma bi anfusihim. Allah will not change the state of the humanity, human race, Muslim state until you and I start making a small drop by drop difference in our own lives. Yes, we have these different things that Mufti Azim Sahib told me to talk about, where these things that happen, we should report them, we should be active in our communities. Well, I'm not the one to talk about that into detail. But all I can give you a message is that every single one of us, we can make a change ourselves. One by one, we do something different in our lives. After all these things are happening, we start making a change. Maybe we have not made dua for a long time. We should raise our hands and say, you know what? Make the dua the Prophet made after Taif. Allahumma inni ashku ilayka du'afa quwwati. At the end he said, wa ilayka al-mushtaka. Oh Allah, there's nobody else I can complain to but you. I can't talk to anybody but you. So today we complain to Allah and we try to fix ourselves. Allah make it easy for us to act upon whatever was said, bring it into our lives, convey it to others. Forgive any shortcomings that I've said or spoken about. I thank Mufti Azim Sahib, Sheikh Minhaj, their father, this community for inviting me here. I do not deserve 1 inch of respect, one second of respect. How Imam Shafi'i says, Wallahi law alimu qabiha sarirati la abas salam ala man talqani nasharta li fil alamina mahamidan hatta ja'alta jami'ahum ikhwani. He says that, you know what? One of the greatest ni'mas of Allah is Allah hides my sins. What is it? Allah hides my sins. Because if Allah never hid my sins, my wife would not even look at me. I wouldn't even look at my wife. My children won't even look at me. The Imam won't even look at me. Maybe I won't even look at the Imam. No one would say salam to me. He said, maybe, arguably, one of the greatest ni'mas of Allah is Allah has hidden my sins. نَشَرْتَ لِي فِي الْعَالَمِينَ مَحَامِدًا حَتَّى جَعَلْتَ جَمِيعَهُمْ إِخْوَانِي. And after hiding my sins, oh Allah, you also forgave it and you gave me respect in the world. So today I don't I'm honored to come here, and I'm not the most qualified person to talk about these things, but just a few words from what I've studied and memorized from the Quran and Hadith, and I shared with you. Allah make it easy for us to act upon whatever was said, bring it into our lives. Wa akhu da'wana, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. The questions and answers? Oh man, I think there's questions and answers too. I'm not here sponsoring Fiji, okay?
What do you say to a person who asks you to condemn the extremist actions?
The question is, what do you say to a person who asks you to condemn the extremist actions? You condemn it. That's what you do. But you know, what half of knowledge of first, this is one good point from this question, is that this may be a means of us trying to learn more about our deen. Because many of us really don't know much about our deen. And that's the harsh reality. We don't know much, so when we're asked these questions, we don't know how to answer them, and then we may look like a fool in front of them. So that is why it is, يُخَالِطُ الْعُلَمَاء لِيَعْلَمْ وَيَسْكُتُ بَيْنَهُمْ. So one way of doing it is, of course, if you know what to say, that Islam definitely does not promote extremism. There's no such thing as extremism in Islam. Islam is a faith which is in your heart. You don't have to show it on your head or your body or on your shoulders. You don't have to make, Islam has لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. This ayat actually came down in Medina al-Munawwara when the Prophet, is a very important point, when the Prophet migrated to Medina. When he migrated to Medina, the Muslims of Medina had given their children to the Jews of Medina to nurture and take care of and do tarbiyat of, because they had good tarbiyat in their homes. So when these kids came from their homes, they became the Jews. They weren't Muslims. So now these parents were forcing their kids to become Muslim. Allah said, no, there is la ikraha fi deen. There's no forcing compulsion in deen. قَدْ تَبَّيْنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. What's right has clearly been identified itself and differentiated itself from wrong. So now just show them the path and they will go on it themselves. There's no compulsion, there's no extremism in deen. And if you want to learn more about it, you have scholars here, ask them about it. I'm just going to try to take some questions. Can ask all of them.
Right here.
How do you go up? Okay, one question is, how should we respond to these recent comments by Donald Trump? Trump him. Honestly, I don't know who that guy is. Do you know who he is? No. You see, one basic thing that we're taught in Islam is that the best way to get rid of something is stop talking about it. You know what it is? What that means? Now, other ulama might have a difference of opinion than me, but that's what Umar al-Khattab used to say. You want to get rid of something, a sin or some bad sentiments, bad odor, stop talking about it. Everyone's talking about it. Stop talking about it. Just make dua. How do we react? Definitely, you see, how would the Jewish community react if somebody said that about them? How would the Christian community react if someone said that about him? So we have different members in our Muslim community that have an identified job and role. Now everyone's not a mufti. Is everyone a mufti over here? In Pakistan everyone's a mufti, not here. In Pakistan everyone's a mufti and a doctor. So you say you have a cough, by the time you leave the door, you have 100 different ways of getting the cough away. Oh, drink this, eat ginger, do this, do that. Okay, bro, I was not asking you. And same thing with being a mufti. So we all have, you know who the New England Patriots are? We all know who New England Patriots are? You know what their motto is? Bill Belichick's motto? Dr. Saab didn't get mad at me for saying this guy's names over here. But my father would too. But I'm going to say it because you're asking these questions. We said his name, so we can say his name. You know what their motto is? Do your job. What is it? Do your job. And then he says in brackets, hidden is do your job well. So every single member in the Muslim community has a job they have to do. And every one of us should do it well. So these things, leave it to the leaders. Leave it to the leaders. Alhamdulillah, we have very good leaders in every community now. Before these were rare commodities before, 20, 30 years ago. MashaAllah, every community has these great leaders. Leave it to them. Let them deal with it, and us on our own, let's not fight negligence and arrogance with arrogance and negligence. That's not how we do things in Islam. So that's number one, we do our job, we all have something to do, and inshallah, Allah is the one that, just like Allah controls my heart, Allah controls His heart. Allah controls my words, Allah controls His words. Allah, one ayat in the Quran it's mentioned, لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بين قلوبهم ولكن الله ألف بينهم. That, O Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, if you spend the entire world from north till south, west to east, you pack this with gold, silver, diamonds, and jewelry, and you give all of this to one person to make him love you, he will not love you if Allah does not want him to love you. Allah puts the love in the hearts of people. So let's not take the role of Allah in our own hands and react to these things more intellectually, more in an Islamic way. And if we have leaders in our communities, let them deal with it. We can do that, inshallah. We don't keep on, on YouTube and, I try to stay away from that. But, arguing and talking, this is not a good thing to do. It's not the Islamic way of doing things. Okay? Now he asked, is Trump a good presidential candidate? Okay. No, listen. There's no question that's a wrong question. People come here and they really want an answer to their questions. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, I really don't know much about him, so we can ask Mufti Azim Sahib that question. I think, I'm honest with you. I know more about Jordan, Kobe, Gretzky, Crosby, these guys, Cabrera, Chris Sale. Yeah, you can ask me about them. I'll tell you everything about them, not these guys. How should I react when someone says something bad about Islam and I can't handle it and I try to retaliate? We already shined some light on that in the talk. Having this emotion that someone says something about Islam is natural. If someone says something about your mother, of course it's natural to have a bad, vibe in your mind, in your heart. The Prophet was sitting with Abu Bakr anhu, and somebody started cussing him. And Abu Bakr was sitting there like this. Hadith in Bukhari, sitting there like this. And then again he starts going at it, talking about him, his father, his family, looking down. And the Prophet sitting there smiling. Third time it happens, again the Prophet sitting there smiling. Third time, enough is bas ho gaya yaar. Enough is enough, man. I have a tongue too, or I can write too. So Abu Bakr then flips on this guy, and he talks back to him. Right when he starts talking, the Prophet gets up and leaves. So Abu Bakr was very concerned that why did the Prophet do this? So he went behind him and he said to the Prophet, he said, Ya Rasulullah, when he was saying this to me, you were sitting there smiling, and when I started speaking, you left. He said, when he was talking to you and you were not responding, angels were responding on behalf of you. So I sat there. The moment you started responding, shaitan started helping you. I cannot sit with the shaitan. So, and then he said, there are few things that are the right of Allah. مَا ظُلِمَ عَبْدٌ مَظْلِبًا. That a person, there's not a single person in this world that will go through injustice, tyranny, that Allah will not help. Allah will definitely help him. This is the haqq of Allah. If we're Muslim, Allah will help us. So that's that. Right when I walk out of the masjid, what is the first step we should do in order to maintain our faith in the face of Islamophobia? Again, we did talk about that. What is the first thing you should do? The first thing you should, I don't know if it's the first thing, but the first thing we should understand that, these things are fitnas. Fitna, a fitna is a trial. Fitna means a test. And the time of Arabs, a fatan was a person, fitna was to check gold. Gold is an element. So when they would dig it up from the earth, they would test, and they will take the real gold out of the artificial gold, and they'll put it through a process called fitna. And the person who did it was known as a fatan. And the furnace that it used to go through was known as fitna. Because now this fitna will determine what is really gold and what is artificial gold. So this fitna that we go to, أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. The Prophet Allah says, وَلَا تَسْمَعُنَّ مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ وَمِنَ الَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا أَذًى كَثِيرًا. That definitely from people you will hear really bad remarks. Now there's a few things. If the remarks, there's different types of Islamophobic reactions. If somebody just talks to you, oh you this, oh you terrorist, oh you extremist, go back to your country. Things like this. Go back to where you came from. So these are just verbal abuses. We should be strong enough to tolerate those. We should be strong enough to tolerate and withstand those. We should just relax when it comes to those things. The Prophet ﷺ people used to write poetry about him, his family for years and years from Makkah. He just withstood it. He said, whatever, it's just verbal. So that's the first thing we should do, is we should realize that our iman will be tested, and this is a time to show that our iman is actually true, and we don't react to these things in a negative way, because a person who reacts in a negative way is a negative person himself. We don't be pessimistic, we be optimistic. We are the ummah of alhamdulillah. We are the ummah of alhamdulillah. Allah will take care of everything. So we turn to Allah when it comes to these things. The problem is we turn to our own talents, we turn to our own different things. These people cannot do anything for us, only Allah can. So we turn to Allah for these things. He's saying having open house in the masjid with non-Muslims and answer their questions may also be beneficial to remove Islamophobia. Definitely. We encourage this, that non-Muslims should come, we should talk to them. But you know what? Let me tell you something. All of us sitting over here, we all are, in our own ways, have interactions with non-Muslims. True or not? I don't think maybe there is a place in Chicago where there's only Muslims. And we are a nation, we are always together. So we should represent Islam in such a way where they will not have Islamophobic sentiments. The way we represent Islam. And why I say this is because I'll give you an example. Brother Farooq sitting over here, he knows us from Michigan. So once in my life, when I was 22, 23 years old, I used to work for this office, my father's office, and I was responsible to have the initial interview with people, with candidates for a job. And I had this stupid question I used to ask them. Where did you work before? Okay, who was your employer over there? Or who owned that business? So if the answer would be like Muhammad, Aisha, Fatima, Abdullah, like these things, I would ask a follow-up question. How was your experience over there? How was your experience over there? Wallahi al-azim, 95% of the time they would react like this. Man, that guy was so stingy. I hated working for him. I hated working for him. He was so rude. He was so mean. She was like this and she was like that. I said, SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. We've been here for 30, 40 years as doctors working in hospitals, treating patients, working with people, and we could not just do one simple thing, represent Islam in a way where people love Islam. Just love it. You don't have to become Muslim, just love. And feel that there's some love there. So I would ask this follow-up question and they would always reply like this. He was so greedy, never gave me extra time. I was on $8 an hour for 3 years. Is this what Islam teaches us? So that's the first step towards this. Yes, the masjid is the final step. We all have our roles to play in our communities. If we're university students, we have our roles to play. Like I mentioned in Jummah today, finally I'll just say this quickly, there's a Comerica bank on 12 and Hoover right next to our madrasa. And when I walked into that bank the first time, this place was full of, these guys they couldn't stand us. They were so afraid of us. And mind you, we dress like this wherever we go. So there's no hiding. We'll walk in, they're always looking at us in a weird way. So I slowly started, there's always a weak point everywhere. I slowly started becoming friends with one person who works there. Hey, how you doing? How's everything? Smiling at them, this, that. Even a $50 check, they would hold it. You know how annoying that when someone gives charity, holding it you have bills to pay. They will hold even if, where did this come from? Where is it going to go? All this. So one day I said to them, I saw cupcakes over there. I said, you know what? I want to feed you guys lunch. I want to bring lunch for you people. I told this girl this. And she said, well, I have to ask my manager. I said, tell her that I want to bring food for you people on behalf of my school. We're your customers. She went to the manager. Manager said, oh, that's so nice of you, but you don't have to do that. I said, I know I don't have to do that, but I want to do that. I want to feed you food. I want to give you lunch. And I want to bring some Arab Mediterranean food for you people. And I said, okay, no problem. Next thing you know, we decided the next Wednesday we'll have food. On Tuesday, I sent 2-3 of my students, and they picked up food from the Oasis, which is a few miles on the road. They had a huge meal. Lamb chops, shish tawuks, futu, hummus, rice, everything. Okay? And we fed them. We fed them. And this is one thing that, we are not doing these days. We're not really doing these things, the proactive things. So then I went there a week later. They had a huge Bristol board filled with thank you letters and appreciation towards my gesture. And then they had a small card, which I still carry in my car, with all these nice quotes about how nice I was and how I didn't have to do this. From that day on, I have never felt Islamophobia in that bank. And you know what? Even if new employees come, they tell them who we are. So recently, when this happened, this Paris in California happened, I was in the bank at 4:55. They said, Abdul, could you wait a few minutes? I said, yes. They made me sit with them from 5 o'clock till 6 o'clock after the bank closed. All of them sitting around, talking about Islam. And I said to them at the end, I bet you're getting paid overtime for this, aren't you? Because they just clocked out at 6. I'm like, yeah, we are. I said, what am I getting for this? So they really came to the source because they had this, when they were told about Islam and all this, like, you know what? We know this guy. We know him. So they came towards me. So that is why the question is, of course the masjid should do this, but us in our own ways, we have a role to play. Do your job and do it well. Okay, the one question is like, how do I get an amazing beard like yours? Sheikh, I think it's talking to you. I don't think the non-Muslims like my beard, especially the border guys.
Just tell them we shampoo you.
Once I was crossing the border, coming to America, they pulled me to the side, and after like 3 hours, they took me to the back, and they had all these different agencies over there, and I swear to you, they asked me first about my beard, like, hey, how do you grow a beard like that? I said, you have to study books for that. It's not that easy. It's years of knowledge. And then they asked me next question. They said, what do you think about soldiers who are dying, American soldiers who are dying in Afghanistan and Iraq? What do you think about them? That's a very tricky question. And I was being absolutely honest with them. I said, you know what? These people who are, first of all, we don't use the word dying when it comes to human life. We respectfully say passing away. These people who are passing away in these countries, they have parents who no longer have children. They have wives who they have left widowed. They might have children who have become orphaned. And a life lost is a life too many. And I feel for them. My heart does definitely go out for them and their families. And if I'm at a stadium and I see them, I'll stand up and salute. No problem. It's a human life. Ahsan taqweem. Human beings are the most exalted of all creations. Go, you can go. They never asked me another question. They give me a passport back, you can go. I was walking out, there was a guy in the front who I know from before. I said, man, that was a very weird question. Do they ask that question often? You know what he said? I hope this is not being recorded. He said, they have asked this question to many Muslim leaders. And many of these leaders have answered this question in a wrong way, with hateful remarks. Hey, why did they go there in the first place? Tail chori karne gaye the na, that's why they deserve that. Like this. And they remarked, and I know some leaders, I personally know some ulama from Canada and different countries. When I asked, they were denied entry into America, denied. Not allowed to come to the country for 10 years, just because the answer they got from this question. So if we are true Muslims, we will know what to say. You see? So nonetheless, how do we grow a beard? Like, I don't know. That's a huge book, but to study. Okay, people are asking about ISIS. I told them they aren't Muslims, but they call themselves Muslims. How can we answer to them? I could easily call myself a doctor. I'm a doctor. It's easy to say something, right? Prove it. So now how would I prove it? I prove it if I'm working in a hospital, if I have, these doctors have these board numbers, NPI numbers, certification numbers. This is my proof for that. How Hassan Basri says, إِنَّمَا دِينُ أَحَدِكُمْ لَعَقَةٌ عَلَى لِسَانِهِ أَسُئِلَ أَمُؤْمِنٌ أَنْتَ بِيَوْمِ الْحِسَابِ قَالَ نَعَمْ كَذَبْ وَمَالِكِ يَوْمِ الدِّينِ. That it's easy to say I'm a Muslim. To say I'm a Muslim is it's something on your tongue that you're chewing. Oh yeah, I'm Muslim. So they call themselves Muslims, but definitely they're not representing Islam. They have their own version of Islam that they have made up themselves, and they're so egoistic, and they're thinking of their own thing, and they're doing it, but they're not Muslims, according to the text of Islam and Quran and Hadith. You see, this is not what Islam teaches us. So how can we answer to them? This is the way to answer that. This is the true Islam, and people like them, now in Pakistan, the real damage, I know this for a fact, a lot of damage happened to Deen from fake Maulvis, fake scholars. So I went to places in Pakistan, and they said, this is our Imam for the last 20 years. So I go pray Salat behind him, and he says, Wala Zwaleen. Instead of Wala Daleen, I said, man, how can this guy be alim if he's saying Zwaleen? And then I was there for 3 days, and he's reading the same surahs over and over again. And then after I realized that this guy is no alim, he studied in a maktab, he needed a job, needed money, and he just acted like he was an alim. So these people who are pretending to be Muslims cause damage to Islam. If we real Muslims, us real Muslims represent Islam properly, they can't do anything. It's because we are not representing Islam properly, they're getting a bad perception of Islam. So that's the answer to that. Our Muslim, I don't think we should answer all these questions, It says Islam, people ask Islam needs to be reformed. Obviously it doesn't, but it's so hard not to get upset. What do you say? Islam doesn't need to get reformed. Muslims need to get reformed. Islam is Islam, and it's a perfect religion. Muslims need to get reformed. Is a monetary support given to organizations like CARE considered sadaqah? Sadaqah, Mufti Sahib. Sadaqah is anything you give for the sake of Allah. And you're giving it for the sake of Allah, so it will be considered sadaqah for Allah and only Allah, and for reward it's considered sadaqah. Is akhlaq the best way to conduct da'wah to non-Muslims, meaning we should be behaving the way a Muslim should behave? Yes, of course, actions speak louder than words. So akhlaq is the best way to represent Islam to non-Muslims. So I think that's good enough. And so I apologize if we didn't answer all the questions. I hope some of the questions you got the response for in the talk itself. And if you didn't, inshallah, Sheikh Minhaj, Sheikh Azim, and those other scholars are over here. And you can continue to talk to them and ask them about these things, and inshallah. And we definitely make dua, the surah Alam Nashrah Laka Sadrak, if we have a chance, look at the tafsir for that. It's very relevant to our time. And it says, إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ وَإِلَى رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ. That is the final solution to everything. We should increase our spirituality with Allah. Get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's how things will change. That's what Allah told the Prophet, so that applies to all of us. Allah make it easy for us to act upon our said.
Answering the questions of youth online.
Sheikh Minhaj is saying we have answers for the questions for the youth. I don't know why they made the youth from 16 to 25. Anyone who's up to 50 is a youth, right? Youngsters. So you guys are all going to be, only the youth is up to 25, 16 to 25. They'll have questions and answers all night. So if the youth have more questions, there will be people here to answer those questions. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanallah Allahumma bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen bi rahmatika ya arhamar.
Those parents who are asking about the Fajr time, Fajr is 6:15. Those who are coming to pick up their youth, the Fajr is 6:15. All the youth are requested to proceed downstairs, the youth for the dinner. Our young brothers and sisters, age 16 to 25, please proceed for your dinner downstairs.